2024 has been an amazing year for RC. We've had some awesome new releases, some slightly disappointing near misses, and some things that might deserve a second look. And today I'm going to show you the best of everything, including maybe something you haven't seen before. To start off, let's talk about the benchmark from last year. This fairly dirty truck is the Team Corrali Kagama 6S, and it is absolutely awesome. This was my favorite RC car from 2023, and whereas this one's fairly heavily upgraded, out of the box, this is a fantastic platform. Given that the EXB V2 came out, this is a fairly controversial pick, but I think its general strength, its awesome handling, and its price mean it really was the best car of 2023. But before we talk about why it was surpassed in 2024, let's talk about control. Whereas the Radiomaster MT12 came out at the very end of 2023, most of us didn't get it into our hands until 2024, and this is the best value for money transmitter you can buy. It comes in two different flavors. You get an Express LRS option, which gives you incredible range and low latency, but most people would probably be interested in this 4-in-1 system. This has a chipset in it that allows it to connect to most other receivers, which means you don't have to swap out your receiver in a lot of cases. The downside of this 4-in-1 is it doesn't connect to the SLT receivers, which means a lot of Arrma's new cars are kind of off the table for it. That being said, this thing has buttons and switches and dials and knobs all over it. It has multiple different options for batteries. Most importantly, it runs the Edge TX operating system. This operating system was originally designed for FPV quads, and it allows you to do basically whatever you want with any of these switches, dials, buttons, and levers. That being said, this operating system is kind of its downfall as well. Like any fully featured software, it's pretty complicated and has a bit of a barrier to entry, but if you can get over that barrier to entry, this is an amazing transmitter. It comes in at an amazing price, and I think it easily earns the best transmitter you can buy in 2024. Moving on to ESCs, 2024 has really been the year of the 32-bit revolution. Both Hobbywing and Castle has moved almost their entire line to 32-bit processors, and that comes with a lot of cool features, but it hasn't been without its issues. Both Hobbywing and Castle had some issues with running sensorless motors in the beginning, though they have both pretty much cleared it up. I would say Castle has done a better job of it. Some Hobbywing ESCs still have some problems with certain sensorless motors, and whereas both companies have made some really great new products, Hobbywing has gone more towards the budget side of things, whereas Castle has really stuck with the high end in both features and price. I'm not thrilled with everything Hobbywing has done. This Maxx 6 G2 can only be programmed through Bluetooth, but if you want value for money, Hobbywing is the king in 2024. That being said, if you want maximum power and maximum features, Castle is hard to beat. Either way you go though, we've definitely seen some serious moves in ESCs in 2024. Where we haven't really seen a lot of movement is in servos. AGFRC is still making most servos for most brands. That includes Power, Hobby, Perfect Pass, and a bunch of other ones. They're making great servos. There's a ton of cool options out there, but not much has really changed in 2024. That being said, stay tuned for 2025 as we might have some new cool stuff coming out from some other brands. But now let's talk about cars, and you might be surprised to see the Redcat Valkyrie on the bench first. Whereas this is an awesome car, and especially with the last sale they had going on, represented fantastic value for money, that's not why it's here. This car is on the bench to talk about Redcat, the company, and a lot of you guys might not realize this, but Redcat has the best customer support of any company in the world right now. Let me explain why. Not only is Redcat very attentive if you have a problem with your car, but they're the only company I know of that actually publicly addresses major problems with their systems. They had an issue with the Machete that came out, and more recently they had a problem with the Valkyrie that came out with the shocks. Instead of just burying the problem or quietly fixing it in a revision, they made public statements about the problems and then publicly fixed the problems. With the Machete, they offered either returns with full refunds or a $50 gift card, and they fixed the problem. And with the Valkyrie shocks, even though it wasn't that big of a problem, they took care of their customers and fixed it very quickly. And whereas from a PR standpoint, that might not be the best thing to do, from a customer service standpoint, it absolutely is. And I want Redcat to get full credit for what they've done in handling these problems. Plus, they're bringing out some cool cars that are really well priced. I think as a company, Redcat has really proved itself more than any other company over the last year or so. But now let's move on to the trend we've seen explode in 2024, and that's minis. And of course, we can't talk about minis without talking about the Mini Maxx. A lot of people really like this truck, and maybe I was too harsh on it in my previous videos. I finally got the part I need to fix it, so let's put this thing back together and give it another chance. Who knows, maybe if it doesn't win Mini of the Year, it will at least win Traxxas of the Year. And this is in no way trying to be mean to Traxxas, but with the way Traxxas pricing has been lately, it almost feels as though they need their own category in order to win any vehicle of the year, simply because even though they're creating really cool stuff, their pricing is so much higher than the competition in almost every category that it feels like they kind of need their own category in order to win something. Now, unlike most people who broke differentials on their Mini Maxx, I actually broke the input gear for the front differential. Looking at the metallurgy here, you can see this was a brittle fracture. Basically, a brittle fracture just means that it snapped off rather than twisting and bending off. A lot of people will call this material monkey metal, but this is actually steel. It's just sintered steel. Sintering is a process where they take powder, press it into a mold, and then using heat and pressure, grow those grains of powder together without actually melting them. When done properly, this can give you an end result that is nearly as strong as CNC machine steel, but of course it has to be done properly, and whether or not Traxxas is paying for it to be done properly is something I just don't know. That being said, the fact that a plastic drive shaft was able to snap a steel input kind of makes me believe this isn't the highest quality steel. This truck definitely isn't without appeal. This has some pretty big 10th scale electronics and other bits in it that no other Mini has, and they make it really, really easy to upgrade. Easy and cheap are not necessarily the same thing, and you are going to spend a decent amount of money for those upgrades. All right, now that we got this thing back together, let's take this thing for a bash, and we're not going to approach this from the viewpoint of someone like me who's been in the hobby for over 20 years. We're going to approach this from the viewpoint of this car's actual main target audience, and that's an 8-year-old kid who just unwrapped this thing out from under the Christmas tree. And to test it, we're going to be using the brand new Vector XL ramp from Rlaarlo. This is a really affordable and awesome looking ramp that I think could be great for mini bashers, assuming of course it can hold up to some bashing and we don't end up with a Looney Tunes style hole in it. As you can see, it's laser cut from several sheets of plywood and kind of goes together like an IKEA piece of furniture. Let's get this thing assembled and see how it's gonna do. As with anything laser cut, we need to pop these out of the base material. Let me go ahead and get all this stuff popped out, then we'll start the assembly. Just like with anything flat pack, there are a ton of parts here, but there's an easy to follow video, so let's get this thing built. First steps to grab one of these ramp side pieces, take 4 of these braces, push them through, and then push them up to lock them. These can be pretty tight, but that's actually a good thing. Before you do any of this assembly, make sure you've punched out every one of these holes because it's going to be a lot harder to do once things are put together. Once you've got those in, do the same thing for the other side, but make sure you mirror it so that they're all facing inward. I'm definitely curious to see how strong this is going to be. All the individual parts are fairly thin plywood, but it looks like it's been designed to be very strong. These pieces definitely are tight, but they fit together really well. And then finally on both sides, we want to take this smaller piece and lock it in right here at the end. Correction, these actually face outward, not inward, but the next step is to take this center support piece, put it in these first 3 notches, push that down to lock it in. Then we're gonna take these 2 support ribs, put them in right here and right here. Next up, we're gonna take these 5 ribs, push them in right here, and then push them down into the slots. Once we have those in, we're going to take 5 of our keys and lock them in place. This is actually a really fun project, and I think this would be a great thing to get to build with your kids, or even to do by yourself in an afternoon, because it's a pretty satisfying project. Next thing to go in is the backflip ramp. These 2 pieces just go together like this, and they're at an angle, and then they go right into the side right here. Now that we have that done, we can put our other side panel on. Make sure you take your time doing this. There are a lot of things to align, and you don't want to break anything. I'm gonna go ahead and do this off camera. We just need to put these 5 keys in here, and now it's time for the ramp itself. And that's as simple as lining these pieces up with the tabs and just locking them in. The final step is to take this elastic band and feed it through all these holes to lock all this in place. I'm gonna do this off camera following the instructions in the video, and I'll show you what it looks like. All right, guys, this thing looks absolutely awesome. It feels really tough, but let's go see how it performs. Is this the best handling Mini in the world? No. Is this the best value for money Mini in the world? No. Will a kid who pulls this thing out from under a Christmas tree, slaps a battery in it, and goes and bashes around the front yard have an absolute blast? Definitely. This truck is tough. It handles okay, but as a little kid, who cares? Whereas it's more expensive than most Minis out there, for an RC car in today's day and age, it's not that terribly expensive. And any kid who finds this under the Christmas tree, especially with that ramp, is going to have a good Christmas. So whereas I can't give this the Best Mini of the Year award, I can give it the Best Traxxas of the Year award. The Best Mini of the Year award goes to the Arrma Typhon Grom, and whereas this one's been upgraded, in stock form, these things are absolutely amazing. They're a little bit limited in where they can go out of the box because of the small tires, but these Proline tires are not very expensive, and they make a great upgrade and really make it more versatile. These have tons of power out of the box, are 3S capable with just a battery upgrade, handle pretty well, and are very tough, and most importantly, are easy to work on. The beauty of this platform is almost all of the screws are 2mm or larger, and basically everything you want to do on this car requires the removal of about 8 or fewer screws. The brush version was great, but the 223S offers a fantastic value for money, and this platform is probably the easiest to work on platform in the industry right now. Speaking of working on cars, you're going to need some tools. Arrma has also taken the absolute lead in included tools. These hex wrenches are really easy to use and are something you can actually keep for a while and not just something you're going to throw away immediately when you upgrade. And when you do upgrade those hex drivers, this is what you're going to want to upgrade to. These are the new Gen 2 MIP hex bits. A good set of hex bits will make your repair so much easier, and these are the best in the industry. These new Gen 2s have really nice color-coded rings on them, and the bits themselves are both strong and fit really well. And guess what? I'm going to go ahead and give this set away. All you have to do is make sure you're subscribed and leave a comment, and I'll pick a winner really soon. To go along with those bits, I think this No Cry driver from Amazon is still the best thing you can get. It offers a really good combination of price, power, and sensitivity. It has an adjustable clutch on it, and most importantly for me, adjustable speed. There are obviously a lot of other options out there, but especially if you see my modification video and do the mod I did to this one, this is a fantastic value for money for a power driver. And a power driver is one of those things that once you start using it in the hobby, you have a hard time going back to purely manual. What isn't fully manual is the next thing on our list, and that is the Genzace iMARS D300 LiPo charger. And again, whereas this charger came out at the very end of 2023, most of us would have seen it in the beginning of 2024, so I think it still counts. This is a 2-channel, 300-watt AC, 700-watt DC charger, and that gives you quite a bit of power to charge even the biggest batteries. It's got tons of great features, including automatic sensing of G-Tech batteries from Genzace. And when you get this thing on sale, you can usually find it for less than $100. I still think the 400-watt S6 from Hoda is the ultimate charger, but for the price, this D300 is hard to beat. And you're going to want to use that charger to charge these really awesome SMC batteries. SMC has consistently made some of the best batteries you can buy, and these new high voltage, high cycle life batteries are really good. You can get them with basically any connector you want. They're reasonably priced, and they're from a US-based company that backs up their products if you have any problems. Those batteries could easily power one of the most controversial releases this year, the Losi Super Laser Nut. Let's throw a pack in this thing, see how it drives, then we'll talk about it. As you can see, for what this thing is, it's actually pretty fun. It handles scale, looks awesome doing it, and it has quite a bit going for it. The biggest problem that we had with the Losi Super Laser Nut is how it was marketed. This thing was marketed as a serious basher, and it just isn't a serious basher. The drivetrain is essentially a 1/8 scale race buggy drivetrain, and this thing weighs twice what a 1/8 scale buggy weighs, and it just doesn't have the strength to really handle crashing this thing hard. That being said, if you take it for what it is a beautiful vehicle, and especially if you could get it on sale, it's not that bad. Speaking of controversial things, I think this gets the award for the most controversial decision of the year. Horizon has been going to 2-in-1 ESC receivers on a lot of their vehicles, and there were quite a few people that weren't happy with this decision, and I understand that. Not only does a 2-in-1 require you to replace both pieces if you want to replace one of them, but these aren't programmable anymore either. That being said, I think most people that buy the cars that these are going in aren't going to care. A lot of us are enthusiasts and we want to do enthusiast stuff, but most of the people that are buying these cars probably aren't, and they're just going to buy them, use them as they come, and enjoy them. And for most of those people, a 2-in-1 isn't a problem. It does have some cool features such as built-in stability control, and it's a cost-saving measure by Horizon that keeps those prices down. Speaking of low prices, I think Rlaarlo should get the award for the most improved company this year. They've released some really cool stuff recently, including this ROG1, the Omni Terminator, the new rally car, and the most recently released buggy. While these things aren't perfect, they represent fantastic value for money. They've also been doing really awesome with making upgrades available, and they've been listening to their customers on updating features. These vehicles aren't perfect, but I'm really excited to see where Rlaarlo is going to go in 2025. Of course, we can't talk about companies doing well without talking about Team Corrali. Not only have they released some great cars this year, including the Kagama 4 and its sister vehicle, the Synchro 4, both of which provide excellent value for money, including almost complete 6S drivetrains in their 4S vehicles. But they're now also being distributed through A-Main, which means these vehicles are going to be a lot easier to get, and parts should be a lot more reliable to come by. Not that parts have ever really been that much trouble, but it is nice to see them get picked up by a major US distributor. Of course, there's no more major distributor than Horizon. Horizon owns Arrma, and Arrma makes this year's best car, and that is the V6 Creighton. Although, ironically, we do have to fix it. And that's because, in spite of the fact that they made a bunch of really awesome improvements, this rear skid plate being one of them, they still have not updated these arms, and these arms are the weak point. By the way, see how tight these screws fit in these MIP bits? That's the beauty of the high quality of these bits. Don't forget to make sure you get subscribed and leave a comment to win that other set. It was actually these arms that caused me to give the Kagama the top spot last year. But I think they've made enough improvements to this platform with the V6 that I think it deserves the top spot today. We can't call a repair job done without a test drive, so let's take this thing for a blast, and I'm going to tell you why I think this thing deserves Car of the Year, even above Arrma's own EXB V2. All right, guys, she's an awesome truck, and this truck is Car of the Year in my opinion. Of course, this is just my opinion, but let me explain why I think this is better than the EXB V2. You get a bunch of features on this truck that you didn't get on the EXB V2. You get most of the EXB features that come on that truck, and you get it for $100 less. Of course, sales can change that equation, but we're not talking about sale prices here. We're talking about the everyday base price that you'd pay for these trucks. Now, I don't think if you bought an EXB V2, you'd be upset about it, it, but I think that the value for money that this thing offers is really, really good, and I'm not sure I'd want to spend the extra $100 for primarily those aluminum bulkheads when I don't normally have problems with my bulkheads breaking in the first place. Like I said though, all of this is my opinion, and I'd love to hear your opinion down in the comments. You're going to be subscribing and commenting anyway to win these MIP bits, so tell me down in the comments what you think the best car this year has been. I can't wait to hear from you, and I can't wait to see you in one of these videos.